Chapter 1. The Unlikely Encounter. I had always believed in fate, or at least I like to think I did. You know, that idea that people come into your life for a reason, that every moment, every encounter is part of a bigger picture. I wasn't sure if I truly believed it deep down, but I liked the idea. It made everything feel a little more meaningful. That's what I told myself anyway, the day I met him. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind where the leaves were beginning to turn, but the air still held onto the warmth of summer's last breath. I was on my way to a cafe, my favorite little place where the music was always soft and the coffee just the right balance of bitterness and cream. It had been one of those days where the weight of life felt a little too heavy. Work had been exhausting and I needed a break. I didn't expect that break to come in the form of him. I was standing in line, staring at the chalkboard menu, when a voice cut through the soft hum of the cafe. "Excuse me, I think you dropped this." I turned around and there he was. Tall, with messy dark hair that looked like it hadn't seen a comb in days, and eyes that seemed to carry a depth I couldn't quite place. His smile was warm, but there was something almost sad in the way he looked at me, like he was carrying a weight I couldn't see. "Oh, thank you," I said, startled, as I reached for the napkin he was holding out to me. Our fingers brushed for a brief second, but it was enough to send a jolt of electricity up my arm. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said, his voice smooth, almost musical. "I was just trying to make sure you didn't leave without your change." I blinked, confused. Change? Then I realized I had dropped the small coin purse I kept in my bag. "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have been out of it," I chuckled nervously. "Thank you again." He smiled again, his eyes lighting up for a moment before he leaned against the counter. "It's no problem. Happens to the best of us." We stood there for a beat, both of us unsure of what to do next. I could feel his gaze on me, but it wasn't intrusive. It was like he was simply waiting for me to say something. I had no idea why, but in that brief silence, something inside me felt oddly comforted. "I'm Leo," he said, breaking the silence with his name. I smiled, glad to finally be able to speak. "Lily. Lily," he repeated, like he was tasting the name on his tongue. "It's nice to meet you, Lily." And just like that, I felt something shift between us. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. Connection. Spark. He ordered his coffee and sat at the table next to mine, and for the next half hour we exchanged small talk. About books, movies, travel. The usual filler conversation that was meant to fill the air but rarely led anywhere deeper. And yet, with him, everything felt different. I found myself laughing easily, telling him things I hadn't shared with anyone in a long time. When I finally got up to leave, I was surprised to find that I didn't want to go. There was a pull, an unspoken bond that I couldn't quite explain, but that felt undeniable. "Would you?" I hesitated, unsure if I was being too forward. "Would you want to go for a walk or something? The weather is nice today." He looked up from his coffee, a flicker of something in his eyes. "I'd like that," he said with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. Chapter 2. The beginning of something more. We walked through the park, the cool air brushing against our faces as we strolled beneath the tall, golden trees. The leaves crunched underfoot, the earth rich with the scent of autumn. It was one of those rare moments in life where everything seemed to fall into place, where the world around you quiets down and you can just breathe. We didn't talk at first. We didn't need to. The silence between us was comfortable, like a space where words weren't necessary. It was only when we reached a small bench by the lake, the soft ripples in the water reflecting the amber glow of the setting sun, that Leo turned to me with a question that caught me off guard. "So, Lily," he began, his voice warm and easy, "what's your story?" I blinked, taken aback. "My story? Yeah, what's the big thing that drives you? What's your passion? What makes you tick?" I hesitated. It wasn't the kind of question people usually asked on a first meeting. Most people kept it light, talking about the usual stuff: work, weather, family. But Leo, for all his calm and composure, was different. There was something about the way he asked it, as though he was truly interested in hearing the answer. I started, trailing off as I thought about it. I had always been the type to float along, just getting by in the daily motions of life. I didn't know if I had some grand passion, some burning fire inside me. But something about Leo's steady gaze made me feel like I should have one. I guess I'm still figuring that out, I said a little too honestly. I used to think I knew. I thought I had it all figured out. But now, it's like everything feels a little blurry. Leo's smile softened. I get that. Life has a way of doing that, doesn't it? Making everything feel unclear, like the pieces of the puzzle don't quite fit. I looked at him intrigued. How do you know that? He sighed, leaning back against the bench and looking out over the lake, the light in his eyes turning distant. I used to have everything figured out too. But sometimes life throws you a curveball you never saw coming. I tilted my head, curious. What do you mean? What happened? Leo was silent for a moment, and I could see the walls he had built around himself, the way he was carefully weighing his words, like he wasn't sure how much he wanted to reveal. I lost someone I loved, he said finally, his voice low. Someone I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. And after that I had to rebuild. Had to learn how to live again, without the person who was supposed to be my everything. My heart twisted in my chest. It was a raw, vulnerable admission, and I could see that it hurt him to say it. I wanted to say something comforting, something to make him feel better, but I didn't know what to say. I could feel the weight of his loss in the air between us, like it was something he couldn't shake. I'm sorry, I said softly, meaning it. That sounds really hard. Leo gave a small, sad smile. It was, but I made it through. And now I try to focus on the little things. The moments, like this one. He gestured to the lake, to the park, to us. Because sometimes, it's the little things that keep you going. I could see the deep sadness in his eyes, but there was also something else there. A strength, a resilience, even if he didn't fully realize it himself. I didn't know what came over me, but I reached out, placing my hand gently on his. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment, it felt like it said everything I couldn't express with words. He looked at my hand for a moment, then back to me, his expression softening. Thank you, he said quietly, for listening. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I simply nodded, the connection between us deepening in a way I hadn't expected. It was strange how easily we had slipped into this, how natural it felt to be with him. But there was something else nagging at the back of my mind, something I couldn't quite place. His story, his loss, it all felt so familiar, like I had heard it somewhere before. But I couldn't figure out where. We spent the rest of the afternoon walking around the park, chatting about anything and everything. Life, music, books, even the occasional silly story from our pasts. There was an undeniable chemistry between us, the kind of energy that makes everything else fade into the background. I had forgotten how easy it could be to talk to someone, to just connect. But even as we walked together, as I laughed at his jokes and felt my heart flutter with every smile, the question lingered. Who was Leo really? And why did everything about him feel so familiar? Chapter 3: The Secrets We Keep. The days that followed our walk by the lake felt like they were moving in slow motion, each one blurring into the next, but somehow all of them made my heart beat a little faster. It was like I had found a piece of myself that I didn't even know was missing. Leo and I began seeing each other more often. Coffee dates turned into afternoon walks, and evening dinners became quiet, shared moments of joy. It was easy to be with him. He made everything feel lighter, even when life outside seemed heavy. But there was something I couldn't shake. Something about Leo that pulled at my thoughts when I wasn't with him. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was a sense of mystery surrounding him, an energy that didn't quite match his gentle, easygoing demeanor. He was always open, always honest about the little things, but I could tell there were layers beneath the surface he wasn't sharing. I had spent hours thinking about it, trying to figure out why I felt like I knew him in ways I couldn't explain. It wasn't just his eyes or the way he smiled, or even the kindness in his voice. It was deeper than that. He had a way of looking at me, of reading me, that made me feel exposed, vulnerable. It was like he could see all my walls and knew how to navigate them effortlessly. One afternoon, we were sitting in a small, dimly lit cafe, our usual spot, when I finally decided to ask. He had just finished telling me about a trip he'd taken to the coast a few years ago, his face lighting up as he spoke about the ocean and the sunsets. His passion for travel was contagious, and I found myself wishing I could go with him to see all the places he had talked about. But the question that had been bubbling up inside me couldn't wait any longer. "Leo," I said, my voice tentative, "I need to ask you something." He looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "Of course, anything. Why do I feel like I know you already?" I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. "It's not just because we've spent time together. Feels like I've known you in another life or something. Does that sound crazy?" His expression faltered just for a split second, and then he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I think everyone feels that way when they meet someone they connect with deeply. It's just chemistry, Lily." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. I knew he was hiding something, some part of himself he wasn't ready to share. But I couldn't bring myself to press him further. Something told me that, when the time was right, he'd tell me. The rest of the day passed in a blur. We talked about lighter things, movies, work, favorite books. But beneath the surface, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were dancing around the truth. Leo was so easy to be with, and yet there was a veil over him. Every now and then, I'd catch him lost in thought, staring off into the distance as if he were somewhere far away. His silence was heavy, filled with unspoken words that seemed to hover just out of reach. Later that evening, after we parted ways, I found myself standing on my balcony, staring out at the city below, my thoughts racing. Leo had become such a constant presence in my life that it almost felt unnatural. But still the questions lingered. What was he hiding? And why did it feel like he was keeping something from me? I hadn't told anyone about him yet. No one at work, not even my closest friends. It was like something inside me told me to keep him to myself, to protect whatever this connection was. But I needed answers. I needed to understand why everything about him felt like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit, and why it seemed like he was only letting me see a fraction of the picture. That night, as I was falling asleep, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from Leo. "I'll be at the cafe tomorrow. 3 p.m. Don't be late, Lily." I smiled to myself, my heart warming. There was something comforting about the way he cared, the way he made me feel special, like I mattered to him in a way that was different from anyone else. But the feeling of unease didn't go away. The next afternoon, I arrived at the cafe a few minutes early, my heart pounding in my chest for reasons I couldn't understand. I found my usual spot by the window, looking out at the passing people. A deep sense of anticipation mixed with nervous energy swirled inside me. Felt like today would be the day when everything changed. I wasn't sure if I was ready for the truth, but I had to know it. At precisely 3 p.m., Leo walked in. But something was different. His usual easy smile was gone. Instead, there was a tension in his posture, a heaviness in his gaze. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to smile as he sat across from me. "I was hoping you'd show up," I said, trying to lighten the mood. Leo didn't respond right away. Instead, he took a deep breath, his fingers tapping nervously on the edge of the table. "Lily," he said quietly, his voice carrying an edge of something I couldn't place. "I think it's time I told you the truth." I froze, the words sending a shiver down my spine. My heart started to race. "The truth about what?" I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. Leo's gaze shifted, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold, a kind of sorrow mixed with regret. "I'm not who you think I am," he said, his voice low. "I'm not just a guy who likes to talk about travel and coffee. I've been lying to you, Lily." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What do you mean? Leo, what are you talking about?" He exhaled shakily. "I've been part of something. Something dangerous. And you." He stopped, his voice faltering. "You've been caught in the middle of it." The words didn't make sense. I couldn't understand. My pulse quickened as my mind tried to make sense of what he was saying, But before I could ask more, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it quickly, his face going pale. "I'm sorry, Lily," he whispered. "I never meant to drag you into this. But now it's too late." Before I could speak, Leo stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'll explain everything, but right now you need to trust me. Please." And then he was gone. Chapter 4. The Truth Revealed. I sat there for a long while, my mind reeling from Leo's cryptic words. The cafe suddenly felt suffocating, the hum of the other patrons' conversations growing distant as my thoughts spiraled. I couldn't make sense of what he had said. Dangerous. Caught in the middle of something. It felt like my world had just been flipped upside down. I had trusted Leo. Hell, I had started to fall for him in a way that made me feel vulnerable in a way I hadn't in years. But this was different. This wasn't the playful, easygoing man who had charmed me with his stories and his kindness. This was a stranger, someone with a past I hadn't known about, and that past seemed to be catching up with him. I stared at the empty chair where Leo had just been, as if by staring long enough, I could somehow summon the answers I so desperately needed. The worst part, I didn't know if I even wanted to know the truth anymore. The mystery, the secrecy, it all felt like it was starting to unravel, and I wasn't sure I could handle it. My phone buzzed on the table, pulling me from my thoughts. I picked it up and saw a message from Leo, just a few words, but they hit me like a punch to the gut. "Stay safe. Don't trust anyone, especially me." I stared at the message for a long moment, the words searing into my mind. I didn't understand. What did he mean? What was he warning me about? I wanted to text him back to demand an explanation, but something in my gut told me it wasn't safe. I couldn't trust him right now. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that the Leo the First had come to know, the Leo the First had fallen for, was still there somewhere beneath the layers of whatever this mess was. As I left the cafe, I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. The afternoon sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows on the sidewalk as I made my way home. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see Leo or someone else lurking behind me. My pulse quickened, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. When I arrived home, I locked the door behind me and sank down onto the couch, the exhaustion from the day weighing heavily on my shoulders. I tried to breathe, tried to steady my racing thoughts, but it was impossible. There was too much at stake now. Leo had opened a door to something I didn't understand, and I had to know more. I grabbed my phone and typed a quick message to him. "Please, Leo. What's going on? I don't know what you're involved in, but I need answers. I trusted you." But before I could hit send, my phone rang, startling me. It was an unknown number. My hand hesitated over the screen. Should I pick up? Should I even trust a call right now? I took a deep breath, my finger hovering over the answer button. I didn't have time to overthink it. If Leo wouldn't answer me, then I had to find someone who would. I answered the call. "Hello." A cold voice on the other end spoke, its tone sharp and calculated. "Lily, you don't know me, but I know everything about you. And so does Leo." My blood ran cold. The voice wasn't familiar, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. "Who is this? What do you want?" "I'm here to give you a choice," the voice continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "You can walk away from this, forget you ever met Leo, and go back to your normal life. Or," the voice trailed off, a sickening chuckle following, "or you can stay involved, and trust that the person you thought you knew is a very different man than you think." My heart hammered in my chest. "What are you talking about?" I could barely get the words out, my throat dry. There was a pause on the other end, then a soft sigh. "I'm talking about a man who isn't just a traveler, a coffee enthusiast. I'm talking about a man with a past, one that's tied up with things much darker than you realize." "Leo isn't like that," I protested, my voice shaky. He's kind." The voice interrupted, laughter lacing the word. "Kindness is a mask, Lily. A mask that hides the truth. Leo is in too deep, and so are you now. If you want to make it out of this without getting hurt, you'll listen to me. I felt a chill run down my spine, a feeling of dread I couldn't shake. Why should I trust you? I spat, my fists clenching in frustration. You shouldn't trust anyone, the voice said, its tone almost pitying. Not Leo, not me. But you're going to have to make a choice. And soon. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone, my breath coming in shallow gasps. What the hell was going on? Who was that? And why did they seem to know so much about Leo, and about me? I didn't know how much time passed before I stood up again, but when I did, the room felt different. The walls seemed to close in on me, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on my chest. I needed answers. And for better or for worse, I was going to get them, no matter what it took. I grabbed my coat and hurried out the door, my heart pounding with fear and determination. There was only one place I could go now, back to Leo, and I had no idea what I would find when I got there. But I was ready to face whatever truth awaited me. Chapter 5. Into the darkness. The city felt different that evening, darker somehow. The streets were quieter than usual, the neon lights flickering in the distance, casting strange shadows on the sidewalks. I walked briskly, my footsteps echoing in the empty street, my mind racing with questions I wasn't sure I wanted the answers to. The conversation with that mysterious caller replayed in my mind like a broken record, each word laced with more fear than the last. I had no idea what kind of trouble Leo was in, or even if he was truly the person I thought he was. All I knew was that I couldn't sit idly by anymore, wondering. I had to find him. I had to get to the bottom of this, even if it meant confronting the truth, no matter how painful or terrifying it might be. My phone buzzed again as I neared the building where Leo lived. I stopped in my tracks, pulling the phone from my pocket, my heart skipping a beat when I saw the message from him. Stay away from me, Lily. It's not safe for you. I'll explain everything soon. Please. I clenched my jaw, my breath catching. Stay away from me. The words stung more than I had expected. Why was he pushing me away? Was it to protect me, or was there something else? My instincts screamed at me to listen to him, to back off for my own safety. But there was a part of me, an intense, desperate part, that couldn't just let it go. I couldn't walk away now. Not when things were just beginning to make sense, even if they didn't make sense at all. With a shaky breath, I kept walking toward his building. My phone buzzed once more, a new notification flashing across the screen. This time it was a call. From Leo. Froze. For a moment I couldn't move, the phone vibrating in my hand like a pulse in the air. Then, without thinking, I answered. Leo. He didn't respond immediately, and the silence was more deafening than any words could have been. Finally, his voice came through, quiet, strained. Lily. His voice was barely above a whisper. You shouldn't have come here. I don't care, Leo. I need to know what's going on. What is all of this? What do you mean by stay away? There was a long pause. I could hear the sound of something heavy shifting on the other end of the line, like he was moving around, pacing. I can't explain it over the phone. Not yet. But you need to understand there's more to me than you know. More than I ever intended to tell you. His words were quick, like he was running out of time. I've made mistakes, Lily. And now it's too late to fix them. I can't keep you in the dark anymore, but I can't put you in danger either. Danger? I repeated, my voice trembling. What are you talking about, Leo? You can't just. I'll explain everything, he cut in, his voice full of urgency. But not here. Not where they can find us. They? I asked, but he didn't respond. The line went quiet again. Where are you? He asked suddenly, his voice sharp with panic. Lily, where are you right now? I'm close to your place, I answered, the words tumbling out before I could stop myself. I was coming to see you, Leo. I need to understand. The silence on the other end of the line stretched out, thick and suffocating. Hi. He stopped, and then in a voice barely above a whisper he said, You need to leave. Now. Before I could respond, the line went dead. My heart raced as I stared at the phone in disbelief. I had barely processed the gravity of his words before something else happened, something far more terrifying. I heard a noise behind me. The distinct sound of footsteps, too slow and deliberate to be anyone's ordinary walk. My pulse quickened as I whipped around, my eyes scanning the dimly lit street. But I couldn't see anything, just shadows and the distant glow of streetlights. I wasn't alone. I took a hesitant step back, my senses on high alert. My hand instinctively reached for my phone, but the thought of calling for help seemed futile. There was no one I could trust right now. Leo had warned me, but he hadn't told me why. Why was I suddenly a target? What had he gotten himself involved in? Before I could react, a figure stepped out from the alley to my left. It was too dark to make out much detail, but the tall, broad shape was unmistakable. The figure moved slowly toward me, its steps calculated, almost predatory. I couldn't move. My breath caught in my throat as I watched the shadow draw closer. And then, just as I thought I might scream, I heard a voice, low and gruff, coming from the figure. "Lily," the man said, his voice like gravel. "Leo's not the man you think he is." The words hung in the air like poison, making my heart skip a beat. I didn't want to believe it, but something inside me knew. This was no coincidence. The man standing before me wasn't just a stranger. He was a part of whatever mess Leo had gotten involved in. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to hold my ground despite the fear that had already begun to gnaw at me. "You don't want to know," the man said, taking another step forward. "But you're going to find out soon enough. And when you do, you'll wish you hadn't gotten involved." Before I could react, the man turned and disappeared back into the shadows, leaving me standing alone on the street, my mind racing with 100 questions. What was going on? What kind of danger had Leo pulled me into? I wasn't sure if I was ready for the answers, but one thing was certain. I was already too deep. Chapter 6. The Hidden World. I stood frozen in place, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The silence of the street around me felt suffocating. Every shadow seemed to conceal a threat, every gust of wind a whisper of danger. The man's words echoed in my mind, bouncing around inside my skull like a million little shards of glass. "Leo's not the man you think he is." I couldn't understand it. The Leo the first knew, the one who'd walked with me by the lake, who'd shared stories over coffee, who'd made me feel safe in a world that often felt uncertain, couldn't be involved in whatever dark, twisted world this man had just hinted at. Could he? I had to see him. I had to get answers, even if it meant confronting the terrifying reality that had suddenly revealed itself. The walk to Leo's apartment felt endless, each step heavier than the last. The city around me had taken on a new, menacing edge, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I'd been so sure of Leo, of us, but now I wasn't sure of anything anymore. When I reached the building, I stood outside for a long moment, my hand on the cold metal of the door. I glanced around, half expecting someone to step out of the shadows again. But the street was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the rhythmic thud of my heartbeat in my ears. I took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and made my way up to Leo's apartment. I didn't knock when I reached his door. Couldn't. I felt like if I knocked, I might never hear the truth. But I had to know what he had been hiding. I turned the doorknob slowly, and to my surprise it wasn't locked. Creaked open and I stepped inside. The apartment was dark, save for the soft glow of the streetlights filtering in through the windows. I moved further inside, my heart hammering in my chest, every muscle in my body tense with anticipation. Leo wasn't here. I knew that instantly. There was an unsettling emptiness in the air, a kind of stillness that felt wrong. I moved toward the living room, my eyes scanning the space for any sign of him. The furniture was the same, modern, minimalistic, but something was off. It was like something had been disturbed. I walked further into the room, and that's when I saw it. Desk. A large, sleek wooden desk was shoved against the far wall, papers scattered all over the surface. But it wasn't the mess that caught my attention. It was the photographs. I walked closer, my fingers trembling as I picked up one of the pictures. It was of Leo, but not in the way I was used to seeing him. This was a different side of him, a side I didn't recognize. He was standing in a dark, shadowy alleyway with a group of men, all of them wearing dark suits, their faces hardened, their eyes cold. Leo, however, was looking directly at the camera, his expression intense, almost threatening. The smile I had come to know so well was gone, replaced by something unreadable. I dropped the photo as if it had burned my fingers. My mind was spinning. What the hell was this? Who was he? This wasn't the Leo the first knew. The one who laughed and joked, the one who took me on peaceful walks, the one who'd whispered sweet words as we lay together. The sound of a door creaking behind me made me freeze. I turned slowly, my heart stopping in my chest. Leo was standing in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice tight, almost pleading. I took a step back, unable to look away from him. "What is this, Leo? Who are those people in the photo? Why are you hiding all of this from me?" He closed his eyes briefly, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he muttered. "But I guess I don't have a choice now. Tell me the truth," I demanded, my voice cracking. "Tell me everything. I deserve to know." Leo looked at me for a long moment, like he was weighing his options. His eyes softened, and for a moment I thought he might tell me the truth. The real truth. "I'm not just a guy who loves coffee and the beach," he said, his voice low, tinged with regret. "I'm involved with people. People who do things you can't imagine. Dangerous things." "Dangerous?" I echoed, my mind struggling to keep up with his words. "What do you mean?" "I've been trying to get out," Leo continued, running a hand through his hair, clearly agitated. "But once you're in this world, it's not that easy to leave. They won't let you." "I've tried. God, I've tried so many times to break free. But every time I try, they pull me back in." I took a shaky breath, stepping closer. "Who are they, Leo? What are you mixed up in?" Leo's gaze flickered to the door behind him, and then to the dark alley outside his window. "They're part of a larger network, Lily. Organized crime, smuggling, money laundering, you name it. I got involved when I was young, too young to really know what I was getting into. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could keep it separate from my life. From you." My stomach churned as I processed his words. This wasn't just some small-time operation. This was big. Too big for me to even comprehend. And Leo was in the middle of it. "But why me, Leo? Why did you bring me into this?" My voice was desperate now, raw. "Why did you let me fall in love with you if this was what you were hiding?" "I never wanted you to be a part of it," Leo said, his voice breaking. "I thought I could keep you safe, keep you away from all of this. But they found out about you. They're watching you, Lily. They're watching both of us now." I felt the floor shift beneath me, the weight of his words pressing down on me like 1,000 bricks. "I don't understand," I whispered, my heart pounding. "What do we do now?" Leo took a deep breath, his hands shaking. "We run. Together. It's the only way we'll be safe." Before I could respond, there was a sudden knock at the door. My blood ran cold. Leo looked at me with wide eyes, panic flashing across his face. "Stay here," he whispered urgently before rushing toward the door. I stayed where I was, my heart thundering in my chest as Leo opened the door. But when he did, the figure standing in the doorway wasn't someone I recognized. It was the man from earlier, the one who had warned me. And in his hand was a gun. Chapter 7. The Point of No Return. The world seemed to stop in that moment, the air thick with tension, my heart slamming against my ribs. The man at the door was calm, unnervingly so, as though this moment was nothing more than an inconvenience to him. His eyes flicked between Leo and me, his gaze cold and calculating. He was tall, his features sharp, and there was something about him that made my skin crawl. Leo stiffened beside me, his face pale. I could see the beads of sweat forming on his forehead, but he kept his posture straight, a nervous edge to his calm demeanor. "Who the hell are you?" Leo's voice was steady, but I could hear the underlying threat in it. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped into the apartment with a slow, deliberate motion. He didn't need an invitation. He was used to being in control. "I told you to stay away from her," the man said, his voice low but laced with venom. "But it seems you've made your choice, Leo." I looked back and forth between them, my mind racing to make sense of what was happening. The tension between them was palpable, like a powder keg just waiting to explode. But there was something more unsettling than just a simple confrontation. This wasn't just about me. This was something much bigger. "Get out of my apartment," Leo snapped, his fists clenching at his sides. But there was fear behind his words, something that made me realize just how deep he was in this world, how trapped he truly was. The man smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. It was sharp, predatory. "You really think you can just walk away from this, Leo? Doesn't work like that. You know it and I know it. You were ours the moment you signed up, and now? Well, now we have to clean up the mess you've made." I felt a chill settle over me, seeping deep into my bones. I had no idea what they were talking about, but whatever it was, I knew it had to do with that world Leo had tried to hide from me. And now, that world had come crashing into my life, threatening to swallow everything whole. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaky but firm. "What do you want with him? And with me?" The man turned his eyes on me, his gaze hard and disinterested. "You're part of the equation now, sweetheart. You should have stayed away. But you didn't, and now? Well, now you're entangled in all this mess, whether you like it or not." Leo's jaw tightened. "Leave her out of this," he said, his voice dangerously low. "This is my mess, not hers." The man shrugged, his smile never fading. "Not anymore." Before I could process what was happening, the man stepped forward, his movements fast and decisive. Leo reacted in an instant, pushing me behind him as though protecting me from the inevitable. The air between them crackled, and I knew this wasn't just a standoff of words anymore. This was real. Leo and the man stood facing each other, neither of them making a move, but I could sense the threat in the air. It was like a battle of wills, and I had no idea how it was going to play out. "Leo," I whispered, my voice full of dread. "Please tell me what's going on. I don't understand. Why is he here?" Leo didn't answer me. Instead, his eyes never left the man standing in the doorway. He was calculating, looking for a way out, a way to end this without anyone getting hurt. But the man was relentless. He wouldn't back down. "Leo, you've made your choice," the man repeated, stepping even closer now, his body language aggressive. "It's time to pay for it." I felt a strange mix of terror and heartbreak. This wasn't just about me anymore. This wasn't even about Leo. This was about something far larger, something I didn't understand but was now in the center of. The weight of it all crushed down on me, and I realized there was no going back. The man was about to move forward, and I had no idea how things were going to end. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let Leo face this alone. Couldn't. I took a step forward, my voice trembling but strong, as I spoke directly to the man. "What do you want from us? Why are you doing this? What did Leo get himself involved in?" The man glanced at me briefly, his eyes almost pitying before turning back to Leo. "You're both in over your heads. You should have never gotten involved with people like us." He reached into his coat pocket, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My mind screamed at me to run, to leave, to do something, but it was too late. Then, just as quickly as he had made the move, the man pulled something out, a phone. He held it out in front of him, his finger swiping across the screen. "This is the last chance for you, Leo," he said, his voice quiet, almost sad. "Do what we say, and maybe, just maybe, you get to live to see another day." Leo's face paled, and I saw the fear in his eyes. He stepped forward, his expression hardening. "I'm not doing what you want," Leo said firmly, his voice low but unwavering. The man laughed, a short, cruel sound. You don't get to make the choices anymore, Leo. I stepped forward, feeling a rush of courage mixed with fear. Stop, I said, my voice shaking. If you're going to kill us, then just do it. If this is the end, then let's face it. But don't drag us through any more of this. Don't drag me into it anymore. Leo deserves more than this. The man's eyes flicked to me, an amused smirk crossing his face. You're brave, I'll give you that. His gaze lingered on me for a moment, before turning back to Leo. You better make this right, Leo. You're out of time. I glanced at Leo, searching his face for some sign that he had a plan, that he knew how to get us out of this. But his expression was unreadable. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there watching the man. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, something unexpected happened. The door to the apartment slammed open, and a loud voice cut through the air. Move! The voice was sharp and commanding, and in the blink of an eye, another man stepped into the room. A man I hadn't expected to see. It was the man who had warned me, the one who had called me earlier, and he was holding a gun. Chapter 8, The Choice. The sight of the man holding the gun made everything else blur into the background. My heart skipped a beat, the sharpness of the moment driving the blood from my face. I barely registered the sound of his footsteps as he stepped into the room, his eyes scanning over the two men in front of him before landing on me. The man who had warned me earlier had arrived, and for some reason, his presence felt like the final puzzle piece falling into place. Not another step, the man with the gun commanded. His voice was smooth, calm, deadly. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The man who had been confronting Leo, his demeanor already tensed further, the gunman's arrival clearly throwing him off. Leo didn't say a word. I could see him taking in the situation, calculating his options, but there was no time to think. The situation had escalated beyond reason. Who the hell are you? The man with the gun aimed a hard look at the new arrival. I'm the one who gets things done, the newcomer said simply, his gaze not leaving the man at the door. And I'm the one who has a say in whether you both walk out of here alive. I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me at his arrival, like a fog had lifted. But it didn't last long. It was replaced by a deep, gnawing unease. This man, this new player in our dangerous game, wasn't here to help us in any way that I could understand. He was here to make sure Leo and I were at the mercy of whoever controlled this world. The gunman, clearly annoyed, lowered his weapon just a fraction but didn't fully relax. You're working for them then, he spat, his voice dripping with contempt. The newcomer gave a small, almost pitying smile. Who do you think they are? I froze as the pieces began to click in my mind. The people Leo had been working for, the ones who had tied him down in this life, were a part of something much bigger. But who were the people who had sent this newcomer? What game was being played, and why was I so deeply entangled in it? The gunman's anger flared. You think you can walk in here and call the shots? This is my territory. Not anymore, the newcomer said, his tone sharp and final. His eyes were hard, calculating, and something in them suggested that he wasn't afraid of a fight, not in the least. I watched the exchange, my mind spinning. What had I walked into? Leo's life had been complicated, but this was something different. It was a world I didn't understand, a world of power and control where everything was a calculation, and every decision had consequences. The tension in the room was suffocating. The gunman and the newcomer locked in a silent, aggressive standoff. But neither made a move. It felt like we were all holding our breath, waiting for someone to make the first wrong move. Leo spoke up then, his voice low, almost pleading. I didn't want this for her. He glanced at me, and I could see the guilt in his eyes. She doesn't belong in this world. She doesn't deserve any of this. The newcomer's gaze softened for a moment before his lips twisted into a grim smile. You're right, Leo. But it's too late for that. She's already in it. I looked at Leo, confusion and hurt swirling in my chest. What does that mean? I asked, my voice small, trembling. Why am I in this world now, Leo? Why couldn't you just let me go? Why couldn't you keep me safe? Leo turned to face me fully, his eyes dark with regret. I thought I could protect you. I didn't want you to know. I wanted you to stay out of all of this. His voice cracked slightly, and it was as though all the walls he had carefully built up between us were crumbling away. But I was wrong. And now we're both stuck. I felt the sting of his words. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, but it wasn't anger that I felt. It was fear. Fear for the person I loved and fear for myself. What kind of situation had I been unknowingly pulled into? Enough of this. The gunman's voice sliced through the silence, harsh and demanding. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on the newcomer. I don't have time for this. Then make time, the newcomer said, his voice deceptively calm. Because the truth is, Leo didn't just get caught up in this mess. He chose it. I turned to Leo, my heart aching. What does that mean? Leo, what is he talking about? Leo looked at me, his face pale. His lips pressed tightly together. The silence stretched, and for a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer me. But then his shoulders sagged and he spoke. His voice raw and regretful. I didn't just get caught up in this, Lily, he said softly. I chose it because I thought I could make a difference. I thought I could help people. People who were lost, who didn't have anyone. But I was wrong. I let myself get too deep, and now I can't pull myself out. Not without hurting the people I love. His voice broke on the last words, and for a brief, terrifying moment, I saw the vulnerability in him that I had never seen before. But it didn't make sense. If he loved me, if he cared about me, then why did he let me in on all of this? Why was I involved now? Then why didn't you tell me? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Why didn't you let me choose what I wanted? Leo's gaze flickered with guilt, his lips trembling. I didn't want you to hate me, he admitted. I didn't want you to see me like this. And I didn't want you to be a part of it. The newcomer, who had been silent for a while, spoke again, his voice low and hard. You should have told her, Leo. Because now she's involved. And there's no turning back. I shook my head in disbelief, the weight of his words crashing down on me. What do you mean, involved? What's happening to me? What's happening to us? The man with the gun let out a humorless laugh, the sound cutting through the room. You think Leo's in this world alone? Think again. The choices he made, the deals he struck. They're all tied together. Whether you like it or not, Lily, you've been drawn into this. You can't just walk away. I felt the walls close in around me, the reality of the situation settling over me like a cold, suffocating fog. There was no escaping this now. No way out. I had made my choice the moment I stepped into Leo's life. And now, whether I liked it or not, I had to face the consequences. Leo was right. We were stuck. And the worst part, we were stuck together. Chapter 9, The Secrets Unveiled. The silence after the gunman's words was deafening. I could barely breathe as the full weight of what he'd said settled into my chest. I had been naive, thinking that love could protect me from the dangers lurking in the shadows of Leo's world. But now it was clear that there was no safety for either of us. We were both tangled in this web of lies, deceit, and power, and the only way out would be to face it head-on. I turned to Leo, my eyes searching his face for answers. But there were no simple answers here. His face was taut with the burden of secrets he'd been keeping from me, and I couldn't help but wonder how many more there were. Leo, I whispered, my voice shaky. What did you get yourself involved in? What did you sign up for? His eyes flickered, and for a moment I thought he might speak, might finally tell me everything. But instead, he just closed his eyes, as if the weight of the truth was too much to bear. I never wanted this for you, Lily, he said quietly, his voice full of regret. But now you know too much. There's no going back. The newcomer with the gun shifted, breaking the tension in the room. There's always a way back, he said, his voice sharp. But for you too, that choice has passed. It's too late for regrets. I could feel my heartbeat quicken. What does that mean? I asked, stepping toward him, defiance rising in my chest. What have you done? The gunman gave a humorless laugh, the sound cold and unforgiving. What have we done? Nothing that hasn't been done before. This world doesn't play by your rules, sweetheart. You have to make choices. You either walk with us or you get out of the way. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had no idea what these men were talking about, but I knew one thing for sure. Leo had been hiding far more than I realized. And now, with these men in our lives, there was no telling where we'd end up. Leo finally spoke again, his voice low and steady. I didn't want you to know this side of my life, Lily. I wanted to protect you from it, keep you safe from the consequences of my mistakes. But that's not how things work in this world. I felt a pang of sorrow and anger at his words. You should have told me. You should have trusted me with the truth. Leo's gaze softened, but there was an unmistakable sadness in his eyes. I know, but I didn't. And now we're both paying for it. The man with the gun shifted, his eyes flicking to the door, as if he was waiting for something. He was impatient, and his body language made it clear that he wasn't here to have a long conversation. What is it you want from us? I demanded, my voice trembling but firm. Why are you here? The gunman's expression was unreadable. What we want is simple, he said. We want to make sure you understand the consequences of the life you're in now, Lily. You've seen the surface. But this goes deeper than you can imagine. I looked back at Leo, confusion and fear clouding my thoughts. What does that mean? What's going on? Leo didn't answer immediately, his eyes flicking between me and the two men. I could see that he was trying to find the right words, trying to make sense of it all. But the truth was too tangled in lies, and I wasn't sure there was a way to unravel it all. The gunman spoke again, his voice cold. Your boyfriend isn't just a regular guy, sweetheart. He's part of something much bigger. And now you're in it too. I stepped back, my mind racing. What do you mean? What is he part of? The man looked at me like I was naive, like I should have known better. Leo's been working for us for a long time now. He's been helping us with certain operations, sensitive ones, people he's worked with, deals he's made. It's all part of a bigger picture. My breath caught in my throat as the realization hit me. Leo wasn't just someone who had fallen into trouble. He had been chosen to be part of something far more sinister than I could ever have imagined. And now I was tied to that world too. Leo finally spoke, his voice low and resigned. I never wanted you to know any of this. But now you do. I looked at him, my heart aching. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me to understand? Leo closed his eyes briefly, his face filled with regret. I didn't want you to see me like this, Lily. I didn't want you to become a part of it. I thought I could protect you, keep you safe. But I was wrong. The newcomer stepped closer, the gun still in his hand, his movements deliberate. You don't get to protect her anymore, Leo. Not in this world. I could feel the tears threatening to spill, the weight of everything crashing down on me. So this is it then. This is the life you chose. This is who you really are. Leo didn't answer, his face a mask of pain. And for the first time, I realized that the man I had fallen for wasn't who I thought he was. The man I loved had made choices that had led him to this moment, and no matter how hard I tried to deny it, I couldn't escape the truth. The gunman spoke again, his voice dark. You'll have to make a choice, Lily. You can stay with him, live this life, or you can walk away. But understand this. Once you choose, there's no going back. There's no escaping. I looked between Leo and the gunman, my mind reeling. I had to make a decision. Stay with Leo, embrace this dangerous world, or walk away and leave him behind. The choice was mine to make. But how could I possibly choose? Leo's voice was soft, almost a whisper, as he said the words I had been dreading to hear. I can't protect you anymore, Lily. But I need you to make your choice. Now. The room seemed to close in on me, and I realized that this wasn't just a decision about Leo. It was about me. About what I was willing to risk. About whether I could love someone whose world was so dark, so full of secrets and lies, that even he didn't know how to escape it. Chapter 10. The final decision. The room was suffocating. Every breath I took felt heavier than the last, like I was drowning in the weight of the decisions ahead of me. Leo's words echoed in my mind. "I can't protect you anymore, Lily." I could see the desperation in his eyes, the quiet pleading, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to trust him fully. How could I? How could I trust someone who had hidden so much from me? The newcomer, still standing by the door, was watching me intently. His cold eyes bore into me like he was studying me, trying to figure out what I would do next. He didn't have the same soft, caring look that Leo had. No, his eyes were calculating, detached, as if he had no problem with whatever choice I made. For him, this was just business. Another transaction. But for me, this was my life. The life I thought I understood, the one I thought I had control over, was slipping away, unraveling before me. I glanced at Leo again, my heart aching. The man I loved, the man I had trusted, had been hiding a side of himself that I couldn't even comprehend. He had chosen this life, this dangerous world that had now pulled me into its chaos. And now, I had to decide whether to walk away from it all, or to stay. "You told me you didn't want me involved, Leo," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You told me you wanted to protect me, but look where we are now. Look at what I'm involved in." His face was pale, guilt etched into every line. "I didn't know how to protect you from this. I thought I could keep you safe, but I was wrong. I never wanted you to be a part of this world. But you didn't give me a choice, Leo," I whispered, the hurt in my voice raw and open. "You kept me in the dark, you kept me away from the truth, and now I have to choose, because you didn't let me in on the decision before." The silence between us was thick, oppressive. I could see the fight in his eyes, the guilt that he was carrying, but there was nothing left for him to say. There was nothing left for me to hear. The gunman stepped forward again, breaking the silence. His voice was cold, flat, and final. "Time's up, Lily. You need to decide." I felt a rush of panic rise in me, my chest tight as I weighed the options before me. If I stayed with Leo, I would be choosing this life, the life of danger, betrayal, and constant fear. It would be a life where I had no control, where I was always looking over my shoulder, never knowing who to trust. But if I left, I was abandoning Leo. I would be walking away from the man I loved, leaving him behind to face whatever world he had gotten himself caught up in alone. I didn't want that. I didn't want to leave him, to walk away and let him drown in the very darkness I couldn't understand. But the question gnawed at me. Was my love for him enough? Was it enough to justify this dangerous, toxic world? Was it enough to sacrifice my own peace, my own safety, for the chance that I could save him from it all? The weight of the decision was unbearable. I closed my eyes, trying to gather my thoughts. My heart ached for Leo, for everything he was going through, but there was a part of me that screamed at me to run, to walk away before it was too late, before I was too far gone to find my way back. I opened my eyes, the decision forming in my mind. "I can't stay, Leo," I said quietly, my voice trembling but resolute. "I love you, but I can't live in this world. I can't be a part of it." The look in Leo's eyes shattered me. His face twisted with pain, but I could see the understanding there too. He knew. He had known all along that this was a possibility, that one day I would reach a breaking point and walk away. "I understand," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted you to have to make that choice, Lily. But I knew deep down that you would. You deserve so much more than this." The newcomer spoke then, his voice cold and final. "You made the right choice, Lily. You can walk away. But don't think for a second that it will be easy." I turned to him, my eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" He smirked, his eyes glinting with something dark, something that sent a chill through my spine. "You can leave. But once you're in this world, there's no escaping it. It'll follow you no matter where you go." My heart stopped. The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. It didn't matter what I decided, where I went, this world would always be there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to slip up. I turned away from Leo, the pain in my chest almost too much to bear. But I had made my choice. I couldn't live like this. I couldn't stay in a life of secrets and lies, of dangerous men and impossible decisions. As I walked toward the door, I felt Leo's eyes on me, burning into my back. He didn't say a word. I couldn't bear to look back at him, couldn't bear to see the sorrow in his face. The love I felt for him was still there, deep in my heart, but it wasn't enough to keep me in this world. Not anymore. I opened the door, stepping into the night air, the cool breeze hitting my face like a wave. I didn't know what the future held for me, where I would go, or what I would do. But one thing was certain. I was free. Free from the danger, free from the lies, free from a life that had never been mine to begin with. But as I walked into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't truly free. That somehow, in some way, the past I was trying to escape was still holding on to me.